We're extremely lucky to have this sort of heritage collection that we manage and look after at Treba. And some of these wonderful trees that you see as you look down through the valley are part of that collection. And probably one of the most spectacular at this time of year are the conifers. A lot of those planted by the Fox family and Backhouse family who followed on from them. So there's some great specimens, as I say, as you look down through the valley. I'd just like to finish off just to say a thank you to all those that have supported us through last year and into the new year. So Happy New Year to you all. Every once in a while a tree does a rather unusual thing. This particular sweet chestnut has actually produced these aerial roots. You can see they're literally going up sort of several meters up into the top of the tree. So what's happened is there's enough moisture underneath that bit of bark as it peeled to produce these roots, and the roots have followed the bark down, and then as the bark's peeled off, it's left these roots trailing all the way down to the ground. It's not the most amazing specimen, this sweet chestnut, but we've left it because it's naturally brought itself back to the sort of stability it can with the root system it has in place. But because of this rather unusual aerial roots, we decided to leave it in place. Without a doubt, one of the most impressive beech trees we have in the garden is this one just down below Tarzan's camp. It has this wonderful sort of scale to it, partly because it's got several stems. So you've got these two big stems going up. And what happens with a tree when it gets bigger like this and it has two stems, it tends to try and sort of almost push itself apart. So what it's done is it's formed these what we call elephant ears. These large, sort of strengthened, sort of muscular sections on the side of the tree to help hold it together. So these are basically pressurizing it, keeping it together as it's grown and got bigger and bigger. So it really does stand out if you look at it from the side. The Thuja plicata, or Western Red Cedar, is a rather unusual conifer in the way it grows. So this is the old original stem, probably 130, 140 years old. But what this particular tree does, it has these branches which sort of loop down and layer themselves into the ground and form separate trunks. So each of these stems that you see running around this central plant are from this original tree. So it's almost sort of self-perpetuating in the way it grows. Another interesting feature of this particular tree, and if you look up, you'll see there's a bracing system. It's called a cobra bracing system. So it's basically a sort of stretchy nylon band which goes around the branches and sort of holds them together. So there's sort of two stems. So as part of the sort of risk assessment for this tree, it was deemed as valuable having this additional sort of bracing system. Years ago, you would have had drilled holes through and had metal bars and a bolted system. Obviously that's very archaic and that can obviously damage the tree. So this is a much safer and much more sort of suitable system for the tree itself. One of my favourite native trees in the garden, although we don't have a lot, are the pines. And this particular one is the Scots Pine. It has this lovely sort of patinated bark which really sort of stands out when you get a bit of sunlight just sort of cascading through, especially at this time of the year when there's less leaves around on the deciduous trees. The Scots Pine are a great tree for standing up to wind and tolerating tough conditions. There's probably quite very shallow soil here, but they're amazingly robust and a great tree to add to the garden if you have the space. Probably the most spectacular of all the conifers at Treba is this big Sequoia sempervirens, the Californian Redwood. It's a wonderful tree for us. It has this amazing sort of base or bowl, very sort of exaggerated and large. And it goes up in this lovely fissured bark which really stands out. It's a great one to view from the top lawn as you look down through the valley. It's one of the very few conifers that will actually reshoot from the base as well. So if this tree was to be cut down, it would actually produce lots of growth and several new stems, so it will regenerate. Scent is one of those things that really adds that extra sort of layer in a garden. And one of the best scented plants at this time of year is fragrantissima. It doesn't look much, but what it does have is an amazing scent, a really sweet fragrance. It's a really good plant for planting close to the edge of a path. You can prune it back quite hard, get it to reshoot again, and you get that lovely vigour and those fantastic flowers and scent at this time of the year. The acres around Alice's seat have really come into their own over the last few years, and you can see the lovely sort of contrast at this time of year in particular with these lovely coloured stems. They were chosen for that, with that in mind, so it gives you that winter element of interest. This is Acer rufinurve winter gold. It has these lovely sort of gold stems and those new shoots, those new buds just starting to form, ready for the spring this year. Another great plant for scent is Saka confusa. It has very insignificant flowers, you hardly notice them, but the scent really makes up for that. It will carry for several metres around this whole space. It's a really good scent, but also you have the wonderful berries at this time of year as well. A mass of these blackberries, really, really impressive. It also sells seeds and naturalises itself as well, so if you're lucky you'll get little seedlings popping up. Now, we don't normally expect too much in the way of cold weather at Tree, but we're quite lucky in that sense from where we are. But we do err on the side of caution with some of our more tender tree ferns in particular. So Cyathea medullaris in particular, with these lovely dark coloured stems and these wonderful fronds that are just forming, is one of the more tender tree ferns. So we will wrap them, give them a little bit of protection up around the crown area really. You can't really do a lot in the actual top of them normally with a small tree fern. You just put a bit of fleece in because they're producing the fronds at this time of the year. So it'd be a bit of a waste of time because they just push it all out. But yeah, so we're just giving a little bit of protection in the crown area where obviously all the new fronds are forming. One of the most important things about a garden is it should always be evolving and developing and reacting in many ways. Sometimes you can get ahead of the game with regards to the sort of climate change. We can plan ahead, but other times we're looking at areas that have basically been overgrown, self-seeded, sort of filled up with not a lot of interest. So this particular part, as you head down along Radiata Path, has just been overgrown with laurel mostly, which has just taken over. So the garden team have been busy clearing through this space, making a bit of room, taking out a few of the sort of weed seedlings, the tree seedlings that are no good, making more room for some new plantings. So this will be a new development, a new planted area that we'll be looking at sort of the following year. So give us sort of 12 months just to assess the space, the area, the light levels in here, and then we'll be looking at doing a planting plan for this space.